Hey, what's up, guys? This is Driz from CSS Ninja, and today I'm here to introduce our new Vue 3 template, Volk. So, Volk is a multi purpose SaaS landing page UI kit. It is SSR ready, and like I said, it is based on Vue 3, and it is also TypeScript, sorry, and it is SSR ready. So some of you might be wondering why we didn't use Nuxt. So when we started development, Nuxt was really far from being stable. I'm talking about the version 3. And at the time I'm making this video, the first stable candidate release is scheduled for like something in like 10 or 15 days. So we had to go with our custom SSR setup using the native Vue 3 SSR capabilities. So before diving into the template, um, I want just to talk about the documentation. So I want to open the Vue.js documentation, the tutorial section. So if you're not familiar with Vue 3, make sure you have that composition switch toggled on because we're mostly using composition API syntax and functions in our Vue 3 products. So make sure you go through this documentation and through the Vue tutorials to get familiar. Vue 3 composition is really awesome and it's pretty easy to learn and to use. Great. So last thing would be not the last thing, but one of the things would be the Volk documentation. So you can access it going to docs.cssninja.io/Volk, and you'll have access to the template documentation with everything you need to know about how to run it and how to work with it. And be sure to make sure to look at the common issues section where you have some of the common issues. That's why it's called like this, that you might run in, and the quick fixes that will help you solve them. And in the case you cannot solve your issue, you can go to support .cssninja.io, create an account if you don't have already one, and just open a ticket with some steps to reproduce your issue, and we'll be glad to help you and to help you solve it. All right, great. So let's get back to our template. So Volk is a huge template. Before starting into the features, you notice that little switch here. So we have a native dark mode, works pretty well and looks good. But I'm gonna switch to light mode for the template presentation. So like I said, it's based on Vue 3, on Vite.js as a bundler, on TypeScript, Sass, and Bulma as a CSS framework. We have a bunch of components, icons. We have some linters like ESLint, StyleLint, and stuff like that. Make sure you join us on Discord so we can chat together and you can chat with the community. And you can also request your GitHub access once you've purchased the template, simply by sending us a message by opening a ticket on our support portal. Great. So about the template demos, we have more than 37 landing pages in very different business areas. So you can see that they're pretty colorful. They were designed and crafted with care and with attention to details. We have some about pages because, as you know, every website needs some about pages. We have some pricing page variations. We have some blog pages, so blog grid with different variations. We have some blog post pages, like 2 variations. We also have some sub pages because every website needs sub pages. So you have some examples here to start from, like help center, contact, or master and detailed view. And as well some terms of service page and error pages. You also have some authentication pages in case you need some. We also have some master layouts. So what's behind that barbaric name is just different navbar variations. So you can see here in the minimal layout, so this layout doesn't have any navbar. That's why it's called minimal. For example, it is used by the authentication pages, that you can see that they don't have a navbar. And then we have the regular layout. This is the one we're using here with the mega menu. And we have other layout variations. And that leads me to talk about the quick starter that is included inside your project. So you'll see that in your main downloaded files from ThemeForest, you have a quick starter which has been stripped of all unnecessary components. It has only 2 pages, a 404 page, and your index page with a default navbar and component that you can remove to replace with the ones you want to use. So there are a bunch of other features that you'll be able to read through, and that leads me to our Volk component library. So the template comes with a full-fledged component library where you have the base components, some intermediate ones, some reusable generic blocks, some advanced components, and some utilities. Okay, so I think we can take a look at quickly at the component library. So this is how it looks. We have some cards. You can search for the component you want to use, for example, avatar, tag, or whatever. So for example, we're going to look at the avatar component to see how the documentation works. So we have the component UI example that is displayed. You have some code sample that you can copy immediately and paste into your project. We have the props. So for simple components like the avatar, we only provide the TypeScript interfaces. That's, I think, enough to understand what props the component has. On more complex components, we provide a table with all props and accepted values. When it is relevant, we provide a data sample example because it's often boring to write demo data, so you can just copy this and paste it where you need it. And we have some additional info about the component overview and usage. So you can see that you have all the different variations with badges, avatar group. So the documentation will be a precious ally when you'll be developing your project with Volk. All right. So maybe let's take a look at the project structure. So when you'll have your files downloaded from ThemeForest, you'll have that Volk template release. just open a terminal inside that root release, not the root release folder, but the template root folder. And from there, you run npm install to install it, or yarn install. And we personally recommend using yarn, as we simply think it's a better package manager than npm. But that's a personal opinion. Of course, you can use whatever you want. A quick side note about my terminal. So this is Windows WSL. It is a Linux Ubuntu distribution running into my Windows operating system. I find it very useful, very powerful, and I really and strongly advise that you use WSL in your project. So I've already opened the template folder. So we're gonna take a look at the actual structure. So these are folders that we use for internal use, and they won't be present inside your release. So first we have that VS Code folder with some recommended extension. We really recommend you to install Volar, which is a Vue TypeScript optimized extension. It provides some useful auto-completion features and other very useful features that will help you produce quality code. We have the public folder, which hosts all of the demo images, and that demo folder won't be included inside your downloaded file, as we don't have the right to include licensed images according to Envato guidelines. So this is exactly why we have a Quickstarter, because if you try to build the main project with those images missing, it will result into an error and your build will fail. So make sure to use the Quickstarter project. Okay, great. So beside the public folder, we have the template root, where we have some configuration files like vit, the package.json, the Docker files, the Bulma CSS vars configuration. I'll get that a little bit later, and our linters configuration. So let's look at what we have inside the src folder. So first, the components folder, which is the most important folder because it hosts all the components that are used inside Volk. So we have the base components, meaning by that all the basic HTML building block that you can find in every web application. We have the blocks. These are reusable and generic blocks that you can use for your content, your CTAs, your features, your footers, your additional nav bars, your image galleries, your theme sections, tables, testimonials, and videos as well. We have the form components. These are forms that are built using the basic form blocks that we have in the base components: checkboxes, controls, input, radius select, text area, toggles. And then we have the layout components, meaning that by that the components that you will be using to build your page layouts. So container, section, footer, hero. So the hero is a bit special. We have a generic hero component with some props, and then we have some far more complex variations that are component wrappers around that basic hero, because you can imagine that it's almost impossible to control that much variations only with props. And then we have that misc folder with some various shape components, some demo components, some other specific components like the countdown, the blob, the back to top button, and some various other things like, for example, the map component, which uses Mapbox. And then we have the navigation with our hamburger component and our main navbar, which is the one with the mega menu you've seen here with the mega menus on the main demo page. Okay, so then we have the composable folder. Composable is a, a concept introduced by Vue 3, and you can think about it about a set of reusable utility functions. So that use layout of us is what handles our layouts, our layout system. We have the data folder, so these are just a bunch of static data sets that we feed to our components, so they can actually render some content. So you can use those or make your own, or not use them if you are going to consume an API that comes from your server. So, quick side note, you can totally build a static website with Volk using data sets, static data sets, or a dynamic website making API calls and consuming your backend API. We have some directives here, like the V background directive. This one lets you, for example, set a background image layer on any HTML element. Then we have the internal documentation. So these components are only for demo purposes. Don't use them inside your project. These are what handles the component library that I've shown you earlier at the beginning of the video. Then we have our layouts folder. So you can see here all our layouts, all the layouts that you can use in Volk to build your own pages. We have the default one, the demo one, the minimal one, and then we have some inverted versions of the others. So when you see navr, it means that it is a layout that uses the navbar A variation, and when you see nav A inverted, it means that it uses an inverted version of the navbar A. So what does mean inverted? So in some cases, even if you're in light mode, you might have a hero header that has a colored background, or even a dark background, or with a background image and an overlay. And in that case, you want to have a specifically light navbar when it is docked at the top, so you can actually see the links and the buttons. So this is exactly what is why we made those inverted variations. So here the layout quick start is what we use to generate your quick starter, like the pages quick start like that we have here. Here you have some locals if you want to do some translation on using the i18n plugin on your project. And here you have the pages folder. So all the template pages are nested inside this folder. So the Volk uses the Vit plugin pages. So it is a plugin that generates your routes for you based on the structure of this pages folder and all the subfolders that we have inside. So for an example, to access that index file inside the about folder, you would have to do your project / about, and that's it. You would land on the index. And if you'd like to land on about 2, you would have to do /about/about -2, and that's as easy as that. So you have some all the pages in here for you to explore. And let me get back quickly to the layout system to explain how you can leverage all these different layouts and even use different layouts into the same project. So for that, we're going to look at a component page. So for example, I say this one. And you can see here that you have some metadata written into the YAML format. So this, it only provides one information, which is this meta stuff. So here you can simply specify the layout that you want to use, and it would be the name of the layout without the .view extension, and that's it, as easy as that. And also, just a quick detail, if you can omit this and it will revert to using the default layout if you don't include this. So make sure to include it if you want to use a different layout than the default one. Okay, so that's for pages. Then we have the plugins. So here we register our plugins that we pass to our app so it can instantiate them. For example, we instantiate our slider plugin here, and then we pass it to the app so it can get properly registered and instantiated inside our pages. Okay, great. Then we have our styles folder, so our SCSS folder. So you will quickly notice that we don't have global style rules for components here, only abstracted mix-ins and variables. So an important thing is that we're only using native CSS variables inside Volk, dropping the regular Sass variables, because native CSS variables are much more flexible and you can manipulate them even at runtime. So we use a package with Bulma, and that package is a JavaScript package that is named Bulma CSS vars, and that helps us override and change and regenerate all the colors based on a color scheme that we previously defined. So here you can see that we have the colors, the mix-ins, some mix-ins for colors, some shades, and some shadow generation, and as well some typography variables. We have some CSS variables defined for each one of the components that you have for a better styling and color abstraction. Before I leave the style folder, I want to show you quickly how you can change the primary and secondary color variables inside your template. So first, you will have to get a color picker like the one on Google. Choose what color you'd like to have, for example, that pink, and get that HSL notation. You will then have to go at the root of the project and open bulma cssvars.config.js, and you would have to replace the primary HSL definition with this one, the one for your color. And you're not done, because you would need to also go to colors and change the primary color value here as well. And you can of course edit any of those: secondary, success, info, warning, danger, whatever, to whatever color you want to have in your theme. So once you've made those changes, you're ready to regenerate the Bulma colors. So for that, inside your terminal, you just run yarn build, then semicolon, and then update Bulma colors. And you hit enter and you're good. And you can, of course, replace yarn with npm run build update Bulma colors. And that's it. Once you've run this, your colors will be updated. Great. So just a few quick things I want to go through before I close this style folder. So we have a shading utility to kind of imitate the native Sass function like lighten or darken. So here we define a range, a number range, and here we have some CSS function to generate for us our dark and light variation. So the syntax is pretty simple, where you would be in styling one of your components, and you would like it to have a darker shade of the primary color. So you would simply have to note, for example, you would like to edit the background color of that component. You would go to the CSS and say background semicolon and then var primary dark and then any of these numbers, and it will generate a dark shade of the primary color. So that works as well for the light shades and every other color which is defined here. So if a color is not defined in here, you won't be able to generate shades from it. So just keep that in mind, it's important. Okay, so we have here some utilities to generate our colored shadows. Good. And last thing is we can go to our utilities folder where we have some helpers. This is mostly the only file in the template where we have some clear CSS instructions. So these helpers are here to facilitate your development experience. And then we have these two files, snug and utilities. So snug is like think of it like a very minimal Tailwind-like system where we can generate some utilities that you'll be able to use in your template. Those utilities are generated here. You have some opacity utilities, some spacing with some margin and padding utilities, and as well some width and sizes utilities. But I'll let you discover this by yourself, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have about this. Great. So then let's look at the stores folder. So here we handle our dark mode. We use Pinia in here to handle the store. And here we handle our user session. So you have a predefined store with user session in case you would like to set some authentication on your website. Good. Here we have some globally available types that are used by some of our components and blocks. So you should definitely include this into your Quickstarter project. And finally, we have a utils folder. So here you have an API folder. This is just some demo mock-up of using a slug with some master and sub pages that we have. So it's always a good thing to demo how we can transition from a master list to a details page. So we do that for the jobs page, the NFT page, and as well the articles, help articles page. Cool. And we have some additional utilities for handling number formatting, cookies usage, rejects, and set timeout, for example, as well as a special utility to handle 404 errors on images. So looks like I've been through everything. Another side note before ending this video is that you won't need to import any component, because thanks to Vit.js, all components are auto-discovered at startup. So you can simply use the component inside your page without importing it. And maybe I want to go back to the components before ending this video, so I can show you how we actually handle the components in a view file. So a view file is made of 3 elements in Volk. We have the script tag, the template tag, and the style tag. Let's start with the script tag. So the script is a setup type. So this is a special composition API feature, and so it's pretty simple. Although if you're not familiar to TypeScript, it's very easy. We create types and interfaces to create our component props. So here, for example, we say that the card shape should match that card shape type that we created. So what that means is that you would only be able to pass one of these values to the shape prop. Any other value would result into an error. And you can see here those question marks. Each time you have a question mark, it means that this prop is optional and that it should have a default value. Here we're also using composition API style computed, the computed function from Vue that we use here to pre-process some classes based on the props that were passed to the component, and we then bind those classes here with a class binding. So here you have the template, which is the HTML for the component. We have some named slots in here that you can use, and as well a default slot. So the styles, we prefer to have a scoped style directly inside the component because first it's easier when someone discovers the template. Everything is at the same place, script, template, and styles, but also the view scopes the component styles to this component internally, so it doesn't have any risk of conflicting with any other styles. And the last thing is that this is also letting us doing CSS lazy loading. What I mean by that is that those styles are only loaded into your page only if you use and load the card component. If you don't do so, those styles are never used. So this is really useful when looking at performance. Great. So I think I gave you a very high level overview of the template, and I wanted to go fast because I didn't want this video to last too long, but I hope that it will be helpful to help you get started with this awesome template. So again, I was very happy to make this video for you guys, and I hope to see you soon on CSS Ninja. Tris here, signing